What's going on, everybody? BauerKillz here, and I want to start this video immediately by giving a sincere thank you to all of you out there who have responded so positively to my last video talking about and showcasing the reasons why I am moving on from the Sony PlayStation after 26 years onto the Xbox Series X. Boy, am I excited to document that journey on this channel. But as I was kind of detailing my desire to move away from PlayStation and spend as little amount of time as possible with it, I couldn't help but think that there was something I was forgetting to mention. Something besides Xbox.
Did you eat a lot of paint chips when you were a kid?
I can't for the life of me put my finger on it. Something to do with a Keystone franchise for one of the consoles. It's one of those things where I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight until I remember what this is. The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD is worth every penny.
Who you calling a psycho?
Here's why. Before we get started, if you're new here, my name is BauerKillz. I've got 32 consecutive years of daily gaming XP. My goal is to cut through the BS that exists in this industry and our world in general and tell it like it is. My nickname is Passion Personified. I get a little bit riled up talking about games.
I get all excited. I'm like JoJo, the idiot circus boy with a pretty new pet.
And I want to be an information resource for you and all things console gaming. If that's something that you can get behind, if that's the type of content that you think you'd enjoy, then what I would invite you to do is saunter up to the like button and inform them that you used to be an adventurer like them and then casually fire an arrow into their knee. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and click that notification and drag down to all notifications so that you won't miss any of my uploads or when I go live right here on YouTube. Without further ado, I need to talk about this because a good game is a good game. Yep. I have predominantly played on my PlayStation and now coming up soon, my Xbox, but I didn't want to leave Nintendo out of this conversation because even though I have some significant issues with Nintendo when it comes to how this particular title was priced and essentially how Nintendo has locked a quality of life feature behind a paywall, their Keystone franchises still have the ability to stand up with any other title on the market. The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD, make no mistake about it, is one of those titles.
I do not envy you the headache you will have when you awake. But in the meantime, rest well and dream of larger women.
I wasn't expecting this. But listen, man, a great game is a great game. And when one of them grabs you and it sinks its hooks into you and you find yourself not being able to stop playing, that's a game I want to talk about. There's a lot of misinformation right now floating around in the gaming industry about what exactly this title is.
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
And I'm here to set the record straight on why this is worth your time. I can't come away with really anything but absolutely glowing positive remarks about it. And it's quite simply an incredible thing, considering the game is 10 years old at this point.
But she's an old lady. I mean, look at her. She's old.
So first things first here, let me just talk about something very intangible about Skyward Sword. Something that just keeps this smirk on my face all day long, even when Baby Shark from my kids is playing for the millionth time in the background.
Kill me, I'm here, kill me!
This game delivers what I call the magic factor. When you were a kid growing up playing games, and you had a title that just hit you deep, warm fuzzies, there are certain games that even in adult life can replicate how you viewed a particular title way back in the day. This feeling is often more fleeting these days. It's becoming more and more difficult for a game to kind of capture that magic, where I think that's more easily experienced when you're a child.
You Miss Daisy?
Good example of this in Ocarina of Time is Nighttime in Hyrule Field. And I remember exploring Lon Ranch and going out into Hyrule Field and capturing Pose when it's like 1 o'clock in the morning my time, but it's also nighttime in the game. That's one of my favorite gaming experiences of all time. I'll never forget it. This idea of a 3D Zelda was a completely and totally new frontier, new way of experiencing this incredible adventure RPG. And it's just harder to kind of recapture that feeling. Skyward Sword HD has captured that for me practically from the moment I pressed the A button.
Now I see why you picked this.
Now, admittedly, if you look at this title at a distance, on paper, as you go kind of line by line through these quality of life updates, it's very easy to just simply come to the conclusion that Nintendo didn't put a whole lot of time and effort into this.
I love these lazy Saturdays.
It's Wednesday, Homer.
Work!
But playing this game with the culmination of all of these, quote, little things, oh my goodness, we have potentially the best 3D Zelda game I have ever played.
I don't believe you.
And one that legitimately feels like a true spiritual successor, finally, to Ocarina of Time, and one that I'm experiencing in 2021.
So beautiful.
Let's look at some of these quality of life updates. You've got to move up from 30 frames per second to 60 frames per second. That ain't a small thing. Buttery smooth gameplay that is executed flawlessly when the motion controls are working. We'll get into that in a minute. Freeform camera control, so you can look at any angle that you want. You can be running with Link and turn the camera all the way around and look at yourself from the other direction, and it makes it feel so modern. If you're using motion controls, you just simply use the left stick. If you're using the button controls, you have to hold down the left trigger and then use your right stick. Beyond that, they've also improved the visuals to an incredible degree. Back in 2011, it just was simply really fuzzy and almost looked out of focus. It really distracted from the quality of the game. This is about as great of a job as you can do without completely remaking the assets of a game. They've essentially taken away that feeling that you're looking through cheesecloth at Link. They've upgraded the graphics to make it accessible. Beautiful HD, vibrant locations that are full of lush, beautiful color. I mean, the color palette that they've used in this game is one of pure imagination that invokes a sense of unadulterated joy, executing on the atmosphere of the environments that you explore, which are wide and varied. Moving forward, you've also seen an addition to the control scheme where you can now use button controls rather than the motion controls. Now, the motion controls are, in my opinion, significantly improved from what they were on the Wii. They are finicky. There's absolutely no getting around that. There are going to be times where you're recalibrating, where you just kind of tap your Y button, you point at the middle of your screen, you tap the Y button, and instantly you recalibrate. So it's really easy to recalibrate, but it gets out of calibration pretty often, and occasionally it's really a pain. But much of the time it's totally fine, and there are times where you've hit that sweet spot. My goodness, when they are working, it is a revelation. But if you do use the button controls, you swing your sword by using your right analog stick. You press that analog stick diagonally, you're going to get diagonal slashes up and down, left and right. You get the gist. They've done a really good job of mapping button controls as well. You also have a ton of smaller quality of life improvements where your spirit guide Fi, Fi, Fo, Fum. I don't know how to say it, so I'm just going to roll with Fi. When Fi pops out of your Master Sword in the original, she's doing it every 30 seconds to 2 minutes.
Hi there. How can I help you?
What the fork? Who are you?
Fi would pop out non-stop, constantly telling you, hey, you need to go here and do this. Hey, your shield is low, so why don't you go get a new one? Hey, I see you're running low on hearts. Hey, you could save 10% on your car insurance by switching to Or my favorite,
Hey, Link, you looking good in them tights.
Him and her got it on. Woo-wee!
They didn't.
No, they didn't.
She was a grating nuisance that constantly stopped the flow of this game. Not to mention, every time you picked up an item, no matter how many times you'd already done so, bring up the description of it and force you into a menu to read it. You couldn't skip through cutscenes. I don't believe you could fast forward through dialogue. They've changed all of this.
Yes! That's awesome!
But man, like, it's just the little things, right? Like the little quirks that the Zelda series is historically known for. Like the shopkeeper floating over Skyloft, and the only way to get into his shop is to hit a giant bell hanging underneath his shop with a projectile. But that's how you get into his shop. He drops down a rope for you to climb, you go into the shop in there, and he's pedaling away. Oh! I mean, just the sheer creativity and the uniqueness of the Zelda series at its best is perfectly embodied in Skyward Sword. I no doubt really enjoyed Zelda Breath of the Wild, and I know most of you out there absolutely adored it.
Maybe your best course would be to tread lightly.
It made me miss traditional staples from the franchise. So coming into Skyward Sword and finding them again and experiencing them in such a fantastic overall title that puts a premium emphasis on story and on characters who are so emotive and so illustrative, you can't help but smile as you're playing through the game and interacting with them. Going back through these incredible dungeons, some of the best in this style and in this genre that have ever been made. They are brilliant. They play out so well and so organically. And yeah, even though your path through them is pretty much predetermined based on the fact that there are puzzles you have to solve, which of course allow you to get to additional parts of the dungeon, and you're finding small keys, picking up the dungeon map. Words cannot express to you how happy that made me feel to be doing that again with the music and seeing the treasure chest opening and all that good stuff. It is an incredible, glorious return to form for this franchise. I cannot recommend Skyward Sword HD enough for people who either haven't played it, who miss the 3D style of Zelda and kind of the traditional staples that come along with the series that Breath of the Wild did away with, or those who have never played a traditional 3D, more linear Zelda experience. For anybody falling into these camps, as well as anybody who loves third-party adventure games and doesn't mind a more curated, designed experience, this is an absolute must-own. I think this game is good enough to justify purchasing a Nintendo Switch. There's not a whole lot of other games on the Switch that you can really say that for. So you guys heard me in my last video getting very upset with Sony and some of the blatant, brazen things that they've been doing when it comes to how they're nickel and diming their consumer base. Nintendo has also been doing that, and they've been known to do that for a long time.
Hello, I like money.
They're charging full price for this game, and for me, it's a perfect value. Those quality of life features end up looking and feeling so incredibly significant when they're all combined, and it, to me, makes it totally worth the $60. But if you're already inherently familiar with this game, you've played through it multiple times, you know it well, then it's really hard for me to recommend it to you at full price. Outside of these very significant quality of life updates, it is the same game. But man, like, the game is just so memorable. It's so memorable, and it reminds me of why I love games in the first place. It just feels so good to be back experiencing an incredibly well-polished, brilliant, classic, traditional Zelda. The game just seamlessly hammers home that old school joy of gaming. And I can't think of anything more complimentary that I can say about Skyward Sword HD than that. So what do you guys think? Have you been playing Skyward Sword HD? Do you think it's simply a cash grab? Are you upset at the pricing? Or is it something you are absolutely going to pick up? Is it a game that you've played before? Do you miss this style of Zelda? Or do you prefer and are waiting happily for Breath of the Wild 2? Either way, I want to hear from you. I love engaging with you guys in the community. Love hanging out together. If you like this content, don't forget to hit that like button, click subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.